Great. So, yeah, that's the recording. And then today, of course, we always introduce ourselves. So it's Shiva, Manuel, and me. And we started this initiative like more than a year ago. Before the Corona pandemic, we had it in real life. So we were all like still in the office and people joining in the office. And yeah, what we thought to do was back then to say, hey, we want to share our experience and give people like some idea of what Agile is and what we do. We decided to not like give like a training to say, hey, you will learn something that is like, something that you can perfectly use and you're going to be trained. It's more or less like, we share our experience, and if you guys can adopt it, we're happy. And yeah, we just like want to make you hungry for more, because I think the Agile way of working and what we do is at least interesting for some of the people that we work with. And we thought, hey, why not joining it? Why not sharing it? And of course, we also work as freelancer here and there. So if you have a need for an Agile coach or some coaching or whatsoever, feel free to contact us at agilebyexperience.com or via email, and we're happy to come together. Then today we have a guest, and we're happy to have Pedro Serraon today. He's an Agile coach, and he worked with a lot of organizations, and especially with transformation of culture and topics. And yeah, he will share his experience that he has done in Keepler, and will show us like what he learned while doing Agile transformations. And yeah, we're very happy to have him here today. And yeah, that's my part, and I hand over to Pedro. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sam. First of all, I would like to say thank you for just letting me this space. I'm very fan of your Agile Breakfast. I attended some of them, and I have to say that for me it's just a pleasure. So this is using self-organizing practices in teams and organization. My name is Pedro Serraon, like Sam told, and I'm working as an Agile coach in a Spanish company called Keepler. Keepler is a company that right now we are in Spain, but also we have some hub in the Dutch region. And the idea is just to go also to, we already are in Portugal also. And our plan is also go to UK and France during the following years. We are more than 100 people. And what I'm going to tell you today is just the story of the Keepler regarding the way that we interpret culture. The status, this is the current status. The Keepler right now is what I'm showing in this slide. And our mission, by the way, is...
Pedro, sorry, are you sharing your slides? Because we're not able to see it.
Sorry. Yes. Now?
Yes. Now we can see
sorry,
it.
sorry. Okay. Sorry. Okay, that's the only slide that I was sharing. This one and this one, so it's correct. It's fine. So we are more than 100 people, and our mission is just to develop data products using cloud environment and Agile methodology. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this slide. The focus is just to share with you the status, the current status, and also what is our mission. And this is important for the things that I'm going to share with you during the following slides, okay? So this is right now, but 3 years ago, Keepler is 3 years old, more or less 3 years and a half. And when we started, when Keepler was created, we were only 10 people. And we, at that moment, we had to decide what kind of culture, what kind of company we want. So it was difficult to deal with that situation, because you have to think what kind of procedure, what kind of environment you would like to create, and it's not easy. So that's the reason that I'm here. I'm going to tell you how we did it. And the first thing that we did is just to start to see what other companies are doing regarding culture. And those more or less were the frameworks that we follow at that moment in order to inspire what things we would like to do in our company. Let me just introduce, it's a brief explanation of every framework. I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this slide, but more or less Holacracy and Sociocracy 3.0 are more or less, are very similar. In fact, they are based on Sociocracy, which is a framework that you can read a lot on internet. It's a framework which is 100 years old, more or less. And when you want to create a self-adaptive organization with self-organization, with empowered teams and these kind of things, here you can find a lot of things that you could use, okay? Both are very similar. In fact, I show you on this slide in order to represent the difference between holacracy and sociocracy. Holacracy is more aligned with sociocracy without the 3.0, and sociocracy 3.0 or S3, which is other way to call it, is very influenced by agile learning. So this is more or less the difference. Holacracy is more prescriptive. You are going to find, for example, a constitution in this framework, and you can follow it in order to run your organization. And on the other hand, S3 or sociocracy 3.0 is more a set of templates that you can use. You can choose whatever you want in order to use it in your company. So those are the two first frameworks, and the third one is the concept of teal organization that you can find in the book Reinvent Organization, written by Frederic Laloux. This is a very interesting book. And here you can find how Frederic represents the evolution of the companies, take into account the level of maturity, the level of trust, the level of self-organization. Depending on that, you are going to find a classification of every concept. So this is a very interesting book. And the last one is the framework called Management 3.0, written by Jürgen Appelo. And this framework, to be honest, I wouldn't consider this as a framework. I would say that it's more like a set of templates. It's very similar to S3 in a way that what you are going to find here is a set of templates, and you can use it in the way that you want, okay? So taking this into account, we started to think what kind of thing we would like to have in our company. And as a result of this, I would like to, before I start to talk about that topic, I would like to ask you something, okay? So let me switch to Mentimeter. Can you see my screen right now? Okay, perfect. So before I start to share with you, something regarding how we implemented our culture, I would like to ask you something. It's a very simple question. How would you start to create a strong culture in your team or company? And there are 4 options. By the way, if you want to answer this question, you have to visit menti.com and use the code that appears at the top part of this slide. And there are 4 options. Just organizing a team building activity. This is a very obvious one. You want to start to create a culture, you decide to do something like this, okay? This is one choice. The second one is aligning our values, which is a way to get to know each other and just to know how the things will be in the future, taking into account this. The third one is just starting to work together. This is the most simple because there is no preparation regarding this. You are going to start together and you are going to do it. And the last one is, if you are not comfortable with the other option, you could say, you could choose this one, okay? So we have more or less aligning our values is the champion, totally. So let me switch to the presentation. And I'm going to tell you about this topic, okay? Like I told you before in this slide, at the beginning, when Keepler was created, we were only 10 people with different roles. For example, you can find here people from business, other technical guys, people from management. It was a very particular group. So we had to decide what kind of thing we would like to do. So the first step that we took was to use a dynamic that you can find in Management 3.0. This dynamic or this practice is called moving motivators. This practice is used when you want to make a person think about what are the prioritization of some topics. In this case, moving motivator is used when you want to prioritize your intrinsic motivators. So we decided to change this approach, and instead of talking about intrinsic motivator, we decided to talk about values. And in order to do this, we got a source that you can find also in Management 3.0 website or book, which is a v-value list. This, for example, is an example of that. Here, there are a lot of values, and we wanted just to be aligned about the values that we wanted for Keepler, for our company. So in that moment, we followed this dynamic with 3 iterations. This is very simple, okay? The thing is just to put in different situations to the people who are in this group in order to make them think what are the most important values for them. So the first iteration was just, okay, thinking about a neutral situation. We are having Keepler in a very normal way. We are not growing so fast, but we are in a good state. We are having money to pay the salaries. We are having clients, so the things are more or less fine, okay? Taking this situation into account, think about your top 4 values, okay? And as a result of this, we got a top 4 values, and the next iteration was just to think about a different context, okay? So the second iteration was, okay, think that we are having a very bad situation. Maybe we don't have money to pay the salaries, we are not having clients, we are having some kind of problem with, don't know, with laws or whatever. Think about the top 4 values that you would like to have in that situation. And think if you are going to change the prior top 4 values that you told us during the first iteration. And as a result of this, we got a new top 4 values. So the third iteration was more or less the same, but instead of talking about a happy path, we started to think about a happy path. Just think that we are having a lot of money, we are growing very fast, we have a lot of people in our company, we are having a lot of clients. Think about your top 4 values and think if you are going to change the prioritization that you gave during the last iteration. And as a result of this, we got the Keepler Manifesto, which is this one. And the top 4 values that we have right now are those: transparency, leadership, solidarity, and continuous improvement. And we decided to put a sentence in every value in order to represent or to give some context about what is the message that we want to send to the people who is going to hire, who is going to join Keepler. Okay, so this is the result of this dynamic that we did 3 years ago, and this is how we did it. Okay, so as a result of this, I can show you this mind map. This is a mind map which represents how our values are totally aligned with the practices that we are following in our company. Today, I'm going to share with you some of the topics that you can find in this slide. For example, today we are going to talk about open salary formula, circle culture, and some of them. There is not enough time to talk about all the topics that you can find here, but the idea of this slide is just to show you, to share with you how our values, how we think that our values are aligned with the practices that we are following, okay? So let's change the topic. Now we are going to talk about organizing the teams. And before I start to share with you this topic, I would like to ask you something. And the question is very easy. By the way, there is no correct answer in any of the questions that I'm asking you, okay? There is a way just to make your thing or give some context about the things that I'm going to share with you. This question is very easy. Is how would you organize a big team or an organization? Just think that you are in the same position that I told you before. You are at the beginning of the creation of a company, and you are over there just thinking about how to do some kind of things about your company. And there are different strategies that you can follow. The first one is through a hierarchy. This is the classical way, no? You are going to create some kind of hierarchy with some departments, and everyone is going to know who is her boss and what are the steps that he or she should take in order to do something and this kind of thing. The second one is applying an Agile scale framework, for example, Nexus or Lex or Safe. This is other way to organize the delivery of the company. The third one is using holacracy or sociocracy. This is a topic that I told you at the beginning of the presentation. And the last one is others. It's a way to say, okay, I'm not comfortable with the other option. I prefer just to use something different. So we have more or less some answer. So far, applying an Agile scale framework is winning. And taking into account your answer, I'm going to share with you the next topic. So, okay. This slide represents different ways to organize an organization. In the left part, you can see the classical hierarchy. There is a top-down sense in this image. You can think that, for example, the red square is going to be the boss, the CEO, and he or she is going to decide how the things are going to be done in our company. Okay, there is a top-down representation of the company, of the power of the power of the company, or the way that the things are running in our company. And on the right part, there is something different. No, we can see that here you can see circles, which are at the same level. There is no any kind of hierarchy, and more or less the people are going to be organized through a skill. In this case, we have, for example, some kind of tools in every circle, which is a way to say, okay, we have here something, and we are going to use it in order to reach something that is very important for the company. So we, at that moment, 3 years ago, we decided that we wanted to have something very similar to the right part of this slide. So that's the reason that we start to follow some concepts that you can find in Holacracy and Sociocracy framework. Those are the concepts that we are using. We are not using Holacracy and Sociocracy in a very restricted way, but we are using some concepts that are very useful for us. The first concept is a driver. The driver is more or less a necessity, a need that you could have in your company. In a way, you remember I told you at the beginning of the presentation that Keepler mission was just to create data product using a cloud environment and in an agile way. So more or less, this is the driver of our company, and it's something that is very important because it's the purpose of the company. And we have to take into account when a driver is very big, you have to split it into drivers, because it's not easy just to have a driver so ambitious and with a lot of people around it. It's better just to split it in sub-drivers, because otherwise it will be very difficult to manage. Okay. The second concept that we are using is the concept of circle. A circle is a group of people with similar role, which self-organize in order to answer its driver needs. And this is more or less like if you have a team that is going to reach something. Okay. In this case, we are going to cover the driver's needs in order to be aligned with the company. And there is a very important thing here is the circle is something semi-autonomous, self-governing, and self-organizing. And this is the main difference of a classical department that you can find in a hierarchy way. Okay. And the third concept that we are using is the link. The link is the person who represents the circles he belongs to in other circle, and is not a boss. That means that that person is going to be like a messenger, but it's not going to be the person who decides things in our circle. And taking into account these three concepts, that's the way that we are running Keepler right now. We have our main driver to be leader in the development of data product in a cloud environment through a differential culture. And as you remember, I told you in the previous slide that when a driver is very big, you have to split. So at that moment, we decided to split a driver in 4 sub-drivers. The first one is the Agile Circles driver, which is a way to say, okay, we want to do things, but we prefer just to do it in an agile way, and just trying to transform the organization that we are working with, for example. The second one is the closed driver circle driver, which has a lot to do with the fact that we are developing our data products in a cloud environment. This is very obvious. The third one is the data cycle driver, that, as you can imagine, we are developing data products. So this is something very aligned with the fact that we want to think about data, how the data should be treated, and this kind of things. Okay. And the last one is the business circle driver, which is a way to represent the department that you could have in an organization. For example, the people who are in contact with the clients, the people who are in charge of the marketing and communication, human resources, and also we prefer just to call it people, and these kind of things. Okay. So here you can see that there are some circles that are split. For example, the cloud is split in 6 circles, and business is split in 4. And this is following the pattern that I told you before. When you have a very big driver with a lot of people around it, it's better just to split it into drivers because it's a way to run the circle in a better way. Okay. So this is the current situation right now in Keepler. This is a snapshot which was taken in June. And you can see how the circles are distributed around Keepler and how many people are in every circle. And also the link, the backup link, because sometimes the link is not available because he or she is working in something. So we prefer just to have a backup in order to deal with the situation and so on. Okay. So let's talk about making decision. I'm going to ask you something. It's also a very easy question, which is the one that you can find in this slide. Just think that you have to decide what kind of habit or what kind of culture you want to have in your company in order to make decisions. So what approach you will use in order to make a decision in a team or organization? There are 4 options, which are very well known and supposed for you. The first one is the top-down approach. Both decides. It's the easiest one. Somebody is going to decide for you, and you are going to follow what he or she says. The second one is consensus. This is more complex because you have to reach some kind of agreement regarding something. The third one is following the pattern advice process. This is a concept that you can find also in Frederic Laloux's book, Team Organizations. And the last one is majority decides. When you have a group of people talking about something, the great majority of people are going to decide what is the correct path that we should follow. Okay. So here we have some answers. There is more or less a advice process is winning, but I think that consensus and advice process are no, advice process is winning, definitely. Okay. So let me share something with you. I'm going to talk about a buy process. A buy process is a practice that you can find in a deal organization. And it's something that you want to use when you want to follow some kind of pattern regarding the decision that you want to make. Okay. It's a group decision-making tool that follows the next steps. Any person can make any decision after seeking advice from, and you are going to find 2 more people. The first one is going to be everyone who will be meaningfully affected, and the second one is people who with expertise in the matter. This is very important because this pattern says that 3 people in an organization could make a decision that could impact the whole set of the group. And this is something that is based on trust. If you want to follow something like this, you have to trust your people, because otherwise they could decide something that will be dangerous for the organization. And this is something that is very appropriate for team organizations. So taking this concept into account, I would like to share with you another concept, which is the concept of open salary formula. An open salary formula is a concept that you can find in Management 3.0, and it's more or less a shared and public mathematical formula that is used in an organization in order to calculate the salary of every employee in a company. Okay, this is a very transparent practice, because you are going to see whenever you want what are the salary you could have if you do some kind of things. And the benefits of doing something like this is, for example, that everyone knows what they need to do in order to grow in the organization. It's also very useful when you want to have a company to be adaptable in the market, and also it enhances both continuous learning and transparency. And as you can imagine, this is totally aligned with our value of. Sorry. Okay, somebody is talking. Okay, so it enhances both continuous learning and transparency. This is very aligned with the value that I told you before, transparency, and we are using that. And our open salary formula is very simple. Every salary in Keepler is calculated multiplying role and experience and adding skills. And I'm going to explain you right now what are the meaning of these concepts. Okay, a role is the main functions played by an employee at Keepler. And as you can imagine, the main roles that we have at Keepler are cloud practitioner, data practitioner, and agile practitioner. Those are very aligned with the circle that I told you in the previous slide, okay? And this is something very aligned with the market. I mean, when clients start to ask for people to Keepler, we start to see what kind of pattern, what kind of skills they are asking we. Entonces, so we prefer just to create a role that could be aligned with the things that the client are asking us. The second concept is experience. It's more or less the number of years that you have been just playing that role. And this concept is permanent. That means that when you join Keeper, you are going to have a role and you only can grow in that way, okay? The second concept is skills. It's expertise and knowledge using a cutting-edge technology or methodology. It's something temporary. I mean, when you have a skill, this is something that you are going to have during the next 2 years. And this race is going to be during those years. After that, you are going to decide if you want to earn a new skill or just to renew the one that you already have, okay? And this is totally mapped with Keepler strategy in a way that when we want to send a message to the company in a way that, okay, we should bet for this, in that moment, we are going to create a new skill as a way to say, okay, if you earn that skill, you are going to earn more money because we think that this is going to be the future in the market, okay? So those are the salaries that you can find in our calculator, are totally public. In fact, if you visit our website, you are going to find it. This is the Spanish scenario with the salary of every roles and for every skill. And this is a German scenario. As you can imagine, it's different because the cost of living in every country is different. So we have to adapt that situation, taking this into account, okay? I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this slide because it's something that you can find on our website. But the point here is just mixing these two practices, a pipe process and open salary formula. We follow some kind of pattern in order to decide if somebody deserves a raise or not. This is an example of the steps, okay? When somebody thinks that he or she deserves a raise, the first thing that he or she is going to do is just to self-assessment. It's a way to say, okay, I have a dossier over here that says that if I deserve a raise, I have to follow this kind of skills. And in that moment, I'm going to consider if I deserve that, and I'm going to ask to my circle if I deserve that. So in that moment, 3 people of the circle that you belong to are going to organize in order to make some kind of interview, to ask you things, to challenge your knowledge and experience. And they are going to ask you about certification, your how you give things and these kind of things. And after that, they are going to decide if you deserve a raise or not. This is totally aligned with the price process practice that I told you before, because 3 people of the organization that, by the way, there are no bosses or nothing to do with that, they are going to decide if you deserve a raise or not. There are not somebody out of the circle deciding that. There are people who will be your colleagues of the circle you belong to, okay? So going back to the mind map, here we have the second or third slide that I shared with you, with the 4 values that we have, the practices that we are following. And I decided just to put this slide as a way to close the presentation and as a way to close the cycle. No? We started just talking about values, talking about practices, and I shared with you some ideas, some concepts regarding this. And now we have this slide as a way to say, okay, we shared with you some things. There are more things that I didn't share with you because it wasn't the focus of this Agile Breakfast. Maybe in the future we will have other one, and I could share with you more concepts that we are using if you are interested in. And more or less, that's what I wanted to share with you. I hope you like it, and if you have any kind of question, just ask me, please.
Yeah, thank you
so much,
for sharing. Sounds amazing. I was super happy to have you here because usually you see these kind of things, kind of radical if you want, in some book or in some web page, but they always sound like a story, like a bit of a fantasy, and you never have the chance to see it firsthand, right? And it's amazing to see this firsthand and have you here to share your experience, right? It's great. It's not in some book, it's just real life and can happen, and you did it, right? And you are smart and everything, but it's just a normal person, right, who did it. So that is not, something going to Mars. But I was thinking, when you were sharing all this, how does it affect recruiting new people? Do you think that having this so open and sort of more flat organization is good to recruit, is attracting more candidates? Or maybe some people say, because maybe people want to change companies because they want to be the boss. You see, they want to progress somehow, right? And then they see an opportunity here, they don't research much, and when in an interview they see all this flat organization and everything is so open, even the salary is open, and they how's your experience regarding that? You get more or less people, they are more or less interested in the company because of this?
Yeah, the thing is that the great majority of people that join Keepler are very happy with this kind of culture. They are very comfortable with, because they prefer just to stay in a place with that they know that they are going to be listened to. They could give us their opinion, and that is going to be taken into account. And when somebody starts the interview process with us, the first step is just to take about it. So this is something that is very positive for us. In fact, we prefer just to have this kind of mindset in our organization, because otherwise this kind of dysfunction could be happening if you have somebody with a different mindset. So people tend to be transparent, tend to be happy regarding the way we are running. In fact, okay, I could manage my expectation of what I'm going to find if I join you before I join you, because I can see the things that you are doing through your website, some kind of videos that we have on YouTube and this kind of things. So far it's something that is very positive.
Cool. Great to hear. I also have a few questions that came up along your session. So first of all, thanks again for sharing. And the two questions I have is like, the one is like, how difficult was it to do like this transformation? So like, what kind of challenges did you face and how did you solve them? And the second one is like how long like approximately did it take you guys? I mean, of course, with like more people joining the company, it might got even more difficult, but like, is there any approximately time frame that you can say, hey, it took like this long to get there, like where you are right now?
Yeah, it's not like a matter of time, but we think that we have to adapt the situation, take into account the KPIs that we are following. For example, if you remember, I told you that we are using some concept of holacracy and sociocracy, but we are not using the whole framework. And nowadays we are thinking about just to evolve that approach, because we think that we are a lot of people. We are more than 100 and we are in 3 different countries. And maybe we should try to follow the next step, which is just to make the meetings the way that holacracy says, and using more patterns that you can find in sociocracy 3.0 and this kind of thing. And regarding the first question, we have to take into account that it was in a way, it was a easy scenario, because we are not talking about transforming an organization that already exists. We are talking about, we are from the beginning, we are going to decide what kind of things we would like to do in our company, and we are going to follow in this. Obviously, we could fail, because it's something that obviously that could happen, but we have to adapt the situation, take into account our values, and also the culture that we want for our company.
Cool. Thank you.
Welcome.
I have a question here. I was just wondering, I mean, when you started the whole thing, you said you were like 10 people in the organization, and now you're reaching 100 and it's in multiple locations. So when you're talking about scaling, how do you ensure that your culture remains true to, what you started with? Or how do you really make sure that you preserve your organizational culture? Is there anything that you're doing for that?
Yeah, we have some kind of KPIs that we are calculating every time. For example, we have a climate survey that we send every 6 months, which is a way to say, okay, we are going to ask things regarding culture, regarding the way that you interpret our culture or you are comfortable with or whatever. And also there is a very important KPI, which is the the people who decide to leave Keepler. And nowadays we are having a very few people decided just to leave Keepler. So for us, there is a very important KPI because it's a way to say, okay, maybe we are not have the whole information, but more or less we can think that things are doing fine because of that. Okay. And also we have a lot of team building activities, which is a way just to get to know what are people's opinion regarding this. We have global retrospectives, which is another practice that we are following, which is in fact is something that you can find in the mind map that I showed before, which is also a way to say, okay, just give me your opinion regarding the way that we are doing things. Are you happy? You think that do you think that we should change things the way that we are doing? This kind of things.
Thank you. I have more questions, but I'm going to allow others to ask questions if there are more.
Are there any questions for Pedro? If you are shy, you can just type the question and I can read, but feel free to unmute yourself and just ask Pedro. Yeah.
Okay, so while people are writing their questions, I had one more question that was regarding the values. One of the things that we see quite a lot in organizations is that they are quickly able to come up with values, but then that's where it is. It's probably in all our company presentations, and probably it'll be there as on the walls. But how do you live those values and make sure these values actually is seen in your everyday work? So that was what I was wondering, because it's nice to have a manifesto, but how do we make sure this manifesto is reflected in our everyday work?
Yeah, we, for example, if you remember in the Agile process, when you have to evaluate if somebody deserves a raise or not, or deserves a new level of experience playing a role, there are some killer questions regarding culture in that way. For example, if somebody considers that he or she is an Agile coach instead of a Scrum Master, we are to ask her how you interpret the values, and we are going to ask for some kind of experience regarding this. So for the 3 people who are evaluated on that person, there is a lot of information regarding this. And it's a way to say, okay, that person is interpreting transparency in this way, and this is the correct way, or maybe he or she is wrong, or these kind of things. And also, for example, the team building activities or the global activities that we are doing in Keepler, for example, the global retrospective that we organized, we tend to use our values as a key point in this organization. For example, we split the whole set of people who are participating in the retrospective, take into account the values, and it's a way to refresh that we have a manifesto, values that are very important for us. We don't consider our manifesto as a slide that you can find in a PPT. We think we try to send the message that this is very important for us, that we don't want to forget these kind of things, okay?
Okay, great.
All right, are there more questions for Pedro? I mean, yeah, it was a very interesting topic for all of us, I guess, and a very different view of Agile, more from a cultural perspective of what we could do. So I'm guessing it's a lot of food for thought for a lot of us, and there's a little we can all take and try in our organizations.
Yeah, and probably it's not an all or nothing, right? Like everything, it's interesting to see this mind map, and then probably one can pick a couple of things from there, maybe start in your own team or in your own area or part of the organization, and propose some experiments and try some of these things inspired by Pedro's experience. So it's not what I want to see here is that it's not that after watching this, I could say, oh, I can't change my company in this way, so radical. So yeah, nice, but this is not for me. And this is for everybody here, I guess, taking something and taking to your team and trying a little bit of this is something that we all can benefit somehow, right?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, if you remember, I told you during the slide of the 4 frameworks that we didn't follow any frameworks in a prescriptive way. For example, Management 3.0 is a very useful framework or a very useful set of templates, and you can choose whatever you want. And could be useful in one context. Maybe in other contexts, you can follow other practices or pattern or template or whatever, but you don't have to follow the whole set of templates in order to consider that your organization or your team is Management 3.0. It's just a way to say, okay, I have a set of tools and I'm going to use the one that is more appropriate for me. Take into account the context, take into account the people who are around me and this kind of thing. And it's more or less the same with the other frameworks. We are using some concept from holacracy and sociocracy as a way to create the beginning of something, but we know that we have to evolve that idea because we are going to grow, we are going to be more people in more countries, and we have to deal with that situation. And maybe the things that you are doing right now are not going to be useful if you grow a lot. You have to adapt that situation, that you have to use more tools, or maybe you have to stop to use some kind of tools that you are using in that moment because now is not going to be useful. So I wouldn't consider this as a something that you have to follow. I consider this like okay, we have some ideas, we have some templates, some tools. Choose whatever you want in order to help your organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Really interesting point, because also what I think is that it gives a really good impression about like how cultures also split over, like, how to say, different countries, right? Because you said you're located in 3 different countries, right? So it's possible to have like a company culture even with people who are not like located with each other, right? So I think this is really about, like, you know, understanding how people have the same mindset and work together closely based on how their values are. And it's possible, I mean, like, even now in these days, I think it's really important to also know, hey, and we don't have to be co-located, we can also work remote, and it will still like have this how to say, this culture, this like behavior, this mindset of people who will trust each other and work together and have great outcome, because it's not about like being together, but also just like knowing that the same values are really important to share and people will trust each other. Great point. Yeah. Really awesome. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. And the thing that you said, you have to take into account that with the pandemic situation, that is going to be more complex now, that we have to be totally distributed and we have to try to run things at the same way or with the same spirit. So, for example, in that way, we are thinking about creating the role of ambassador as a way just to export the culture from at least at the beginning of the creation of a new hub in other country. And it's a way just to, okay, we have this culture, we are going to export that during, don't know, 6 months, 1 year with a new role. And that is a way just to ensure that the things are more or less at the same way that we want.
Yeah, nice way. Great. Hey, any more questions from the audience?
I guess we've also reached almost the end of our time here. Just giving people enough space to just grab a coffee before the next meeting, I guess. But we would love to hear your feedback also. If you're liking such topics that we are bringing in and the guest speakers, we certainly enjoy talking to them and bringing in this new experience. So please do let us know through through the chat messages or writing to us directly if this is something that you're liking and if you want to hear more, and we'd be happy to also bring in more speakers to really have such conversations and people sharing experiences.
Yeah. Great. Then thanks a lot again, Pedro, for joining and being our guest. Really happy to have had you today. And otherwise, I would say, yeah, enjoy the day. And of course, we will see each other again next month as we're planning already the next Agile Breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.